going to be a good player. I mean, as I said, I'm not drafting for need. I have Crawford, but if James Swanson becomes valuable, he is tradable. Players do have they're not they're fungible. Let's just say that you can trade players of value for other things you need.
Right. Uh, so you try to stock your farm system then and try to sort of plan for the future, or I guess
Yeah,
it
well, the
depends
Phillies
kind of
the
which
Phillies have
team.
no choice but to do that
Right.
right now.
Yeah. But
Uh,
just in general, is that a philosophy you have, or do you try to wheel and deal and
well, really, I try to approach it like I do real life because it has the same structure as real life. As you see, because I mean, early days you didn't have the same kind of simulations where you could simulate all these aspects with the transaction rules and everything. But even if it's not identical to real life, it's the same kind of challenge. So I try to approach each situation based on what I have and what I do. I'm in any kind of game, or whether it's a PC game or a fantasy game or real life. I do think that if you over plan and you're too rigid in your planning, because people will say, I'll get people asking me for advice in their fantasy drafts, and they'll always say, should I take X before Y? Should I draft second baseman in the second round? I mean, you get these ultra specific questions, but it's important not to be rigid in your planning because events will change. You'll have some surprises, both positive and negative, and you have to go forward from there. In this situation, with the Phillies and this particular game, this was a team that I needed to rebuild. So I'm focusing on restocking the farm system because I think that's the best path to getting the Phillies to compete again, both in the game and real life. But when opportunities have arose, like trading Cody Ash when he didn't quite fit, sometimes you have to need to not stick to the plan. I saw an opportunity to get a decent shortstop to with trade value that could hold things down for a year or two, and I took that. I didn't think Cody Ash was as valuable to me as Brandon Crawford was, and actually Brandon Crawford was pretty solid this year. But that's the approach I take, is to not overtake an approach, and that sounds kind of like cheating to say, oh well, I don't take an approach, but that really is an approach in of itself.
right, right. I mean, it's more about what's you were talking about being realistic, and it's more about what makes sense in that particular situation in that game that you're playing. You're not. I mean, because some people will just wheel and deal no matter what, no matter what. Um,
Well, it's whatever is fun for you.
right,
The thing is when you wheel and deal too much, sometimes you're not really getting a clear plan involved. It's just you're essentially just throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks and just shaking up to shake up. And I think that can tend to be counterproductive, especially
yeah,
when the computer GMs are tough, because these GMs will not take Ryan Howard off my hands. Um, in the old days, you could probably dump Ryan Howard, but AI has improved considerably over the years.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's something we're always improving, and that's something that always tends to be kind of an interesting point for some people. The whole idea of I know it like I think it was last year Marcus sort of tweaked the trading difficulty so that the normal was a little harder than in the past, and then kind of each the two steps up from there were harder as well, so that the really hard one was even harder.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
just playing on normal here, and
right, and that's yeah.
it's you can definitely see the improvement of the AI over the years. That you can't steal prospects anymore. You have to give value to get value from a lot of teams.
Right. And just like real life, the AI jam may make a poor trade. I mean, it does happen, but and like people always point out on our forum, I mean, the game does not see names; it only sees numbers. So when people get worked up over a specific player being traded, well, the computer doesn't know who that is. It just knows numbers. So
Yeah, but if it's
it's,
untradeable, then what's the fun of it? If you can't trade that player, you can't trade that player. It's like who says that? I
right,
mean,
right,
look how quickly. I mean, someone would say, "Oh, what if you say you send this a year ago and someone said, "Oh, Galileo, oh, you can't trade Matt Kemp. The Dodgers aren't going to trade Matt Kemp." Well, clearly come on, Galileo. Sorry, I have a cat here that's getting in my face. There's a lot of things that happen that people would say, "Oh, there's no way that's going to happen."
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's that's the
Like
thing too. Is
like we were talking about Cliff Lee, when he was an excellent prospect, but he had kind of taken a huge step back in his first few seasons in the majors with the Indians, and I remember at the time Zips gave him a decent projection. This was after the year he had like a 6-point-something ERA. Zips gave him a pretty decent projection, and people are like, "No, Cliff Lee's not going to do that." And of course, Cliff Lee not just did that; he just went insane in the other directions and totally obliterated Zip's projection for him to the other side. And if you had done software before that, people would look at reality and say, "Cliff Lee is not going to become a Cy Young candidate. Are you insane?" But Cliff Lee did become a Cy Young candidate,
right.
Because things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's always that certain amount of randomness and variation that gets built into it. I think that's kind of a sticking point I know some people have with the whole concept of a simulation is, I guess they wanted to mimic reality to such a degree that, like you said, then there's no surprise, and then what's the fun of that if there's no surprise or nothing, interesting is happening.
Yeah, if you just want 2014, just go watch 2014.
Right. Right, exactly. Go watch those games on YouTube or
they're all available.
TV
archive.
You
can find them, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean I think that's what's fun. I mean I've played some historical Phillies teams. I've actually had Eddie Murray on my team and Mike Piazza.
No, don't take Eddie Murray.
I took Eddie Murray. I did.
Sad.
I forget if I traded for him or snagged him as a free agent. I do remember I got into a bidding war for Randy Johnson at one point and managed to finally sign him. I have fun kind of wheeling and dealing and doing that kind of stuff and kind of blowing up the team and remaking it. It's always kind of interesting to create that alternate reality.
I remember
historical.
One of the older out of the parks, I guess it'd be 7 or 8 years ago now. Well, I remember that any time I would manage another team, at some point the Orioles would pick up Jeff Francoeur during that season, and I'd always be like, "No, don't pick up Jeff Francoeur." I'm sad.
Well, one thing I've noticed from simming this season a couple times is the Tigers tend to get rid of Victor Martinez a lot.
Oh, did they? I wonder if they got rid of him in my league. I didn't keep track of every single player, or I never.
I noticed they a couple times they traded him to the Yankees for Chase Headley, which is interesting.
Well, he could. Well, the problem with Nick Castellanos is he's not a good defensive player. There, they've given him a chance. It looks like they did trade him, and unless I missed him, I don't see Victor Martinez.
So they did.
Yeah, but when did they trade him, and for who?
Exactly. They tend to trade him early, like in like May. Not even getting close to the trading deadline.
Shoot, let's see if he ended up with the Yankees. That'd be funny if he did end up with the Yankees in the game. No, he didn't end up with the Yankees. Let's actually look. What's the best way to find him?
Search his name.
Oh. Yeah, I never use the search for some reason. Oh, he went to the Padres.
Huh.
In May. Let's see what he went for.
Yeah, in May. They seem to get rid of him in May for some reason.
For Franchi Cordero and Chris Smith, man. And he didn't really earn his contract either. Of course, he's not earning it now, but man, the Phillies. I mean, the Padres. They had Dan Murphy at some point. They had a really weird sim season, I think. They did make the playoffs, I believe. Yeah. But Kim actually hit home runs for them, which is not happening in real life.
Right.
Yeah, that's another thing. What if the sim? Let's say that it was the start of the season hadn't started, and it was May in someone's sim, and Matt Kemp had 1 home run. you know there'd be someone complaining, this isn't realistic, Matt Kemp only has 1 home run. But Matt Kemp does only have 1 home run.
Right. Let's see.
Yeah, I ended up giving. They're the ones that ended up with Utley.
So someone's got a comment about Inside the Park, and I don't know. We've talked internally about doing another version of Inside the Park, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I don't know if you remember that game, Dan.
I remember it. I don't think I played it.
Yeah. They only did that. That was before my time at the company.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, we've got a little fan base out there for it, but I don't know if it's ever gonna come back. I guess it'd be cool to kind of play inside, kind of a new version of Inside the Park that would, maybe allow you to import that player into OOTP or something. But
yeah, but as long as the key is not to lose kind of the core experience. You don't want to.
Right.
Mission creep. I don't know. Something like that might make more sense as like a standalone, and maybe import it, maybe not directly in. Well, I guess I'm not the programmer. I'm just thinking here.
Right, you mean like export your player and then import them into out of the park? So, see if there are any other comments. So, yeah, we will be giving away 2 copies of Out of the Park, which I should have mentioned at the beginning. I did say that online.
I'll mention that in Twitter.
Yeah, why don't you mention that? So I will be giving away 2 copies. Well, the original Inside the Park did allow exporting the character to OTP, as someone said. So
did it?
There you go. So I didn't actually play it.
Yeah, I didn't. I remember it. I just don't think I played it.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't get me excommunicated from the Out of the Park chat.
Well, I worked for the company and didn't realize that. So Marcus will probably fire me once he watches this archive of this video.
We're all in trouble now.
I know, right?
Okay, I sent a message on Twitter that we're giving away copies.
All right. See how that goes. So we probably don't want to. We've been going for about 80
hour and a half.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I have any thoughts on anything else. I wanted to. Well, I guess one question I wanted to ask you is kind of your history of playing games like this. I mean, you played Out of the Park for a long time. Did you play things like Stratomatic as a kid or anything like that?
My first game of this type was a little dinky text simulator that worked on my computer. It was on a 5 1/4-inch floppy called I can't remember what it was called now. It was Major League Manager. Very generic name. 1989. It simulated it was 1989 or the 1990 season. That was my first one. I did play Stratomatic. I did play Dynasty League Baseball. I still play Diamond Mine Baseball. I still play MLB The Show. If it's baseball, I'm insane about it. Whether it's a in-depth simulation or it's more of a reflex game like Baseball Stars for Nintendo. Did you ever play Baseball Stars?
I think I might have. I do remember.
You had to have played
baseball. And Nintendo games. There was RBI Baseball.
I actually made an edited version of an RBI Baseball ROM with Zips projections a couple times, with the projected playoff teams. So you could play RBI Baseball with Justin Verlander and Tim Lincecum when he was good. Oh well, he's good again, but sort of. Hello.
How's he? Yeah.
No, he's actually this season he's getting some love from the FIP gods because the last few seasons he's had FIPs that are not good, but not as much of a disaster as he's been this year. I mean, he still has an ERA of 2.5. I mean, if you told me that Clayton Kershaw would have an ERA significantly worse than Tim Lincecum at this point of the season, I would have assumed that someone had Tommy John surgery or someone died or something. I don't know. But as you said, people would say, you would get emails. Your simulation has Clayton Kershaw is worse than Tim Lincecum. I want my money back. Um,
Right.
but it's happened so far. Well, Kershaw's going to be